very good performance by Villa. So that was a really entertaining game. I think Bologna realised they probably needed to win this game.
Yeah, they had some chances.
They took it to them and it made for a bit of a ding-dong-do. Delighted, I'm sure, at the moment, is our resident Villa fan, Stan Collymore. Hi, Stan.
Paul, Andy, up the Villa.
Indeed,
tremendous.
Up the Villa.
You're gone.
Well, just saying, Boubacar Kamara coming on last night and Mings to come back. I was thinking, like, there's so many players that are still to kind of be integrated into the team. You've got a cracking squad. You're in good form. The fact you've started this so well will allow Emery to rest a few in some of those later games. You are set really fair at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that the most impressive thing about Aston Villa on the pitch at the moment is twofold. One, the manager being able to manage minutes and manage expectations of supporters with consistent performances. Went 1-0 down against Fulham. Fulham very good at home, as we know, this season. But they kept plugging away, kept passing the ball, kept creating opportunities, and eventually broke Fulham. And they did the same against Bologna. Bologna very early on, I think they've had 7 draws so far this season. Of course, they lost Calafiori to Arsenal, Xerxes to Manchester United. So when you lose two key players, it's very difficult to go into a Champions League season. But what the managing of the expectations has been exceptional, because Villa fans now go to games knowing that they're going to get a consistent level of performance. And the other thing is managing players' minutes. I mean, Ollie Watkins was on the bench last night in a Champions League game. That just would have been unthinkable even 12 months ago in the Conference League.
Yeah.
And in the Conference League, we had some sort of very good performances and then some quite sort of flat ones. I remember our first game in the Conference League, and it looked like a team and a club that had just been back in Europe for quite some time. The biggest compliment that I can pay as a pundit to this Aston Villa team is that they look like a team that have been in the Champions League for a number of years, and they add something. I watch all of the games, you know, whether it be Real Madrid, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, of course, Dortmund last night against Real Madrid. And I watched the Villa game and was analysing the Villa game, and I thought, this team belongs here, and this team can add something to this tournament, and it's remarkable. I mean, there's been a lot on Villa Twitter I think it's in this last week. It was 2 years ago since Steven Gerrard got the sack after a loss at Fulham, and near the foot of the Premier League table. I defy any club and any club with a decent squad. You know, half the players that played. That are involved in the Villa squad at the moment were half the players that Steven Gerrard had. So that's a fair number of players. You're talking about, you know, maybe 12, 13, 14 players. I defy any club in the Premier League to go from virtually near the bottom of the Premier League to looking comfortable and confident and adding something in the Champions League within 2 years.
Yeah.
And I go to Seville a lot, and one of my best mates is a big Betis fan. So I'll go to Seville and I'll go to Sevilla and I'll go to Betis. And those 4 or 5 seasons where Unai Emery was winning the Europa League every season, I was like, where's this coming from? Is he just found a little niche? And then, of course, he goes to Arsenal and it doesn't quite happen for him there. And the good evening thing, so he became a sort of a figure of fun.
True.
Is that he is an exceptional football manager. Villa are very lucky to have him. I do think in the next year or two there will be other clubs again looking at him. But it's a marriage made in heaven. Really good manager, really good coaching staff, players that want to learn, younger players that want to develop. And it's a fantastic time at the moment to be an Aston Villa fan, but a fantastic time to watch Aston Villa from the outside as well.
The other thing about Villa, which is really good, is they've got 2 great strikers. That really, really helps. Lead strikers and Morgan Rogers, who's playing brilliantly. Oh, there we go.
That'll be the phone, Andy.
And as you say, Stan, great manager. Everything's set up. I mean, not just in Europe, but I can't see them not being 4th. I can't see them not being in the top 4. It seems unlikely to be derailed at this point.
Well, I mean, of course, you've always got to bring the likes of Newcastle and Manchester United, Chelsea, Spurs, because you know, if eventually these clubs are going to click and it's going to make, clubs like Villa, unless they can get around FFP and continually bring in top quality players, it's going to be difficult. I think that the thing is this season, Andy, is that players like Tyrone Mings coming back, Philogene that they'd watched go off to Hull from Villa, did very well, comes back, he's added something. Boubacar Kamara you mentioned, but he may now struggle to get into a midfield that effectively is anchored by Yuri Tielemans, that I would certainly put in the top 5 performers in the Premier League this season, if not the last 2 seasons. Onana, that a lot of Everton fans said he's a bit of a moody git, Stan. Be careful of him. And he's loved being at Aston Villa. And players that have had bad games, like Diego Carlos, that have then backed up a bad game with 3 or 4 top quality performances. So, I mean, if you're a John McGinn at the moment and you join the club in the Championship, you must be just cannot believe walking out Villa Park and seeing the Tifo and the Lions and the supporters, how much Villa Park generates energy. But as a Villa fan, the biggest thing I'm happy about is, and I've said this before to you when we talked about Villa, is the younger generation, the 16 to 30-year-olds that have constantly been told about the glory days of winning the European Cup in '82, nights like I played in against Atletico Madrid at Villa Park, which was an incredible noise, and other European campaigns, and now seeing it in their own time with their own heroes. I mean, the 2 strikers in particular, Jhon Duran needs some careful managing. I've got to be honest, when teams are winning games, you can get away with anything. And I didn't like the fact, but this is a pundit speaking, that he came off the pitch, started kicking chairs, throwing his toys out the pram, and everybody laughs it off as, well, you've won, he's scoring goals and it doesn't matter. It'll matter down the line when Villa lose games and he does that, because players like Ollie Watkins that do behave themselves, that do go out there and put themselves on the line week in and week out, we're thinking, hold on a sec, he's getting away with things here that I'm not. So that has to be very carefully managed. Yeah. But overall, Aston Villa as a football club on and off the pitch is a 9 out of 10. And I'm just glad that loads of supporters across the world are seeing what I know Aston Villa to be. Yeah. You do, because you 2 support fantastic big old clubs that have had successes and failures over generations, and that we are back where we feel we belong. Not necessarily, top of the Champions League, winning the Premier League every season, but competing with the very best.
Nice one, Stan. We'll catch up with you Friday.
Up the Villa.
There we are. Stan Collymore reflecting on last night. I think Monchi as well has been important. To have that upstairs, to have someone who knows how you work, the sort of players you like. It makes such a massive difference, their relationship.
It's just happening, it's just working.
Yeah, looking very good at the moment for Villa.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.